move on to a panel discussion. And this discussion is Women Leadership in Building Environment of Tomorrow. This will be moderated by Nooshin Behroyan, the founder and CEO of Paxson Energy and Infrastructure, number 9 fastest growing private companies of America.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for having me. I have the pleasure of moderating this panel today, and I would like to introduce the very fierce women of this panel. And the first one, Dr. Reem Labhar, Director of Strategy and Portfolio Governance of Etihad Airways. She is supporting the digital technology innovation as well as sustainability. Dr. Reem has 20 years of experience on transport strategy. She's a former RTA Strategy and Policy Director driving sustainability. She is a Bain and Harvard alumni and holds a PhD in economics. Next, Ms. Maya Ayoub, founder and CEO of District 12. Maya comes from a strong economic and finance background and has founded 3 companies, The Private Circle, District 12, and Fire Faiz. She has over 15 years of leadership experience in corporate events and communications in the Middle East. Maya is an impact entrepreneur and is actively engaged in advocacy for women empowerment. Next, a very humble Ayesha Khan, founder of Food ATM, United Nations Women Mentor, Board of Directors, members at United Nations Global Impact. Food ATM is a corporate social responsibility initiative based organization located in Ajman, UAE. Food ATM provides daily healthy meals throughout the year to families in 200 countries by utilizing innovation of food dispensing through smart cards. They have grown from 6,000 meals in 2019 to 50,000 meals per day in 2021. She's a very busy woman. Next, we have Miss Aisha Mansoori, Director of Accenture Middle East, responsible for all the health and public sector accounts within the UAE. She advises clients to what is the best fit and manages the delivery team to ensure quality of proposals are up to the standards. And I think I got them all. Well, thank you, ladies, for being here with me today. It's an honor to be among all of the fierce leaders of the Middle East and these fabulous women. So the first question, I've been told that I'm asking controversial questions, but I would like to ask everyone's permission to bear with me as I'm asking them, is because I'm very, very interested in your experience. Personally, I am born and raised in Iran. However, I got my education in the United States, and that's where my operation mainly is. So the first question is, as a female leader, what do you find to be the most significant barriers to women succeeding in the workplace? And how do you think we can change that? Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Maya.
Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I believe that the major barrier to female leadership is perfectionism. And
can you speak louder?
Yeah, it's actually the risk of failure. We are taught to be perfect. We are taught to avoid risk and failure. And I believe we need to overcome this fear. We need to change the perception. It's not about the goals and objectives of gender equality. It's about this invisible part of the culture iceberg that we need to work on. We need to grow in changing the perception and the beliefs, the assumption that we are not supposed to do this and that. This is, I believe, what you need to change. We need to learn to teach girls to be brave, not perfect.
Thank you for that. Yes, Dr. Reem, can you go next? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so my thoughts are slightly different. First of all, I think that we are in the different, let's say, path in our lives. So some of us have children, some of us doesn't. So I am a mom of 3 dinosaurs myself. So I'm not scared to fail because I learned after 20 years of experience that failing is part of the learning, right? And by failing, it allows us to take some lesson, take a step back, look at what we missed to redo again, and then basically reach the target that we have in the beginning. So somehow failure is not a bad thing, it's part of innovation. We should allow people basically to fail and succeed in just a safe environment. I would say as a mom, where I have fears, basically disappointment of my family, disappointment of my children on what I'm doing. So I always try to look from outside. What am I doing? Is it good for my community? Is it good for my family? Is it good for my children? Is it good for my country? So it's not really about failure, but really try to, when I do something, to do it with my heart. We do it with the right feelings and to basically try to achieve something. If we miss the first time, we succeed the second time.
Fantastic. You want to add to that?
It's a huge honor for me to be here in the first place. I'm grateful that I've been given an opportunity to discuss with amazing women here on hot topics, as she said, could be controversial also. I would like to share that when I wanted to start off this project, where I had a very stable career in the government of Dubai, the observations or our first observance are our family themselves. When a woman wants to get into an activity of doing good for a few million people, they would look at you. And probably the barriers are there in every home and every workplace. It's not that they don't want you to be leaders, but your own people sometimes feel scared that you're a woman and how will you handle a major task. So when I went about saying, I want to feed a few million people, the lower income communities across the world begin with UAE. So my family was a little scared. And then when I made it, I have my friends now, when I'm in the 4th year of operations, they say, it's like 50,000 people a day. That means 50,000 families across 20 countries. It's a man's job, Aisha. You're pulling it out. They had no ill intention while saying that. They were just caring and they were worried about me. So this could be a barrier which I have realized is there in every home, in every workplace, where we think women are delicate and they can't take up a huge task. So I would like to change that perspective. There is no man's job, woman's job. There is a difficult job or an easier job. And let's consider all our daughters and sisters to take up difficult jobs because women can make it. Thank you.
So Aisha, I want to bring that question back to you, Mansoori. We have 2 Aishas here. Because you run the corporate world. And these women talked about the challenges from the family and cultural perspective, and I want to take it to the macro level. And how do you see the corporate world is creating those barriers, and what can women do? Or what has been your experience?
All right. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to speak on this very prestigious panel. I mean, just to answer your question, I think seeing it from the corporate world, things have changed. I mean, nowadays, it's more like women in leadership, women in leading positions, women to be empowered. Maybe 10 years ago, when I wasn't even working, I was just in the university, things have been different. There have been fields that were more male dominant. I mean, I studied electrical engineering. It was a male dominant world. Still is, might have been changing. But it's always that perspective when you see like person studying into any career, they say, oh, it's a male dominant or a female dominant. I think these things are changing. And with corporate world, like, I mean, I work at Accenture, I'm a director, I lead health and public sector. I can see that there are more empowerment of women coming into the corporate world. I think it's going to take time. I mean, maybe the UAE is a leading country for this. Others are going to follow. But having that barrier, I think it's going to start, as Aisha said, it's going to be different because there's no longer a male or a female job. It's more like an easy job or a difficult job.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. So this takes me to really the subject of, working in a male-dominated industry. I work in the oil and gas industry, right? One of the very traditional industries. So that takes me to I'm almost bound to ask this question that, across the world, Middle East, and again, I'm a Middle Eastern, is culturally understood to be not as gender equal. And what is your point of view on that? What is the government is doing to change that? And how is that perception potentially not correct?
If I may answer basically that question. So before coming back to UAE, I was in Europe. So I was born and raised in Paris, in France. After that, when I was a consultant at Bain, I basically traveled across the globe. I was in Singapore, I was in China. And at a certain point of time, I decided to come back to my roots and to my community. I was extremely surprised, and I'm still amazed by how much effort there is towards women in the UAE. We are, alhamdulillah, lucky enough to have this leadership that is coming first from the governments and from our leaders, Allah yahfadham, to basically push the women and to make them visible. So of course it translates in our organization. So my organization as well is very male dominant. I'm coming from aviation sector. So during the COVID crisis, and aviation was the first one hit by the COVID, the entire organization basically help us and support us as mothers, how we are going to manage the children, working from home, a flexibility around timing, go pick up the kids, drop them, the activities of the children. The entire organization basically shifted around how to support and help the women of our organization. Until today, whenever we have something as a mom, as a mother, and we have now our chief HROD, who is Dr. Nadia, the first UAE doctor in aviation, who is basically also managing now HR. Basically, she put a lot of policies to support women in aviation. We have awareness around breast cancer, which as well is a big topic as female, and we are not basically, we talk about it. We talk about those topics that are around mothers. We have a lot of policies around basically how we support women through pregnancy, through managing the children, etc., etc. Honestly, I feel blessed to be in UAE. It was totally different in Europe. In Europe, we still have this gap of salary. I don't have a gap with my male colleague today in Etihad. Quite the opposite, I have to say. I'm basically from my HR or even from my leadership team, I am assessed not as a woman, but as basically a director with a certain scope. Am I doing my job, yes or no? This is a question every year we need to answer, and I'm assessed just on that. Not because I'm a female or a male. We never basically, those topics are not even discussed here in UAE, which is weird because when I go back to Paris, they're like, oh, are you able basically to drive? What happened for women? I'm feeling that only here, when I'm in Europe, never in UAE. It's quite the opposite. I'm really pushed and supported by my organization and our leaders to basically be visible, which is not the case, unfortunately, in Europe. And I think they have a lot to learn from UAE because really UAE is leading this topic. And one good example is the new weekends. New weekends allow us as mothers and as hard workers to spend more time with our families. And it was an amazing progress for this region.
Well, thank you for that. This sounds amazing. So, Aisha, I know you started the food bank, and you obviously, I could only imagine for an organization to go from 6,000 meals to scaling to the level that you've scaled. What has the government's support been to a female-led and run organization, in your perspective?
To begin with, I have to be very vocal about being grateful to the government of UAE. They have never discriminated or had any questions for me that being a woman, and especially not being from the food industry, I'm an IT engineer, traveling into an industry which is completely unknown to me academically and as per my professional tenure was concerned, there were not questions raised. Instead, they appreciated and supported. I would really like to take you through a little time in the past when the pandemic was prevalent and there were lockdowns. This is a fact where, as everyone knows, that we are giving food for just 3 dirham for over 3 years now. It's the 4th year into operations. The lockdown times were times when we really ourselves didn't have much to offer. Around us in the industrial area were almost 800 boys who did not have a job to go because of the close downs and shutdowns. We fed them with tea, popcorns, and biscuits as breakfast, lunch, and dinner, same menu 3 times a day. But then that continued for more than 10 months. And the government was appreciative. They recognized the Chamber of Commerce, the CSR department. They recognized my effort, gave me appreciation certificates, and now also for every program related to social responsibility, I'm always considered, regardless of this being whichever industry that maybe I don't even map to, but now that I have matured into.
So Maya, I'm going to come to you. What do you think are some of the most dangerous behavior or traits that you've seen derailing female leaders' careers? What do you think, from the society standpoint, from corporation standpoint, from a business standpoint, what do you think are the holdbacks for female leaders or female entrepreneurs?
I do believe that first, as a mother and as a business leader, one of the most behavior is when we break the balance between being and doing. It's this multitasking and being constantly connected, we're always connected on these. Yeah, so we're always connected. We don't have a balance between being and doing. And I believe we really need to work on this balance, because whenever this balance is broken, we lead to a burnout. And we really need to pause and reflect and try to shift perspective on where we are and find solutions that fits us. Because we really don't take care about our mental health. As women, we are givers. We give a lot. We give in the workplace. We give at home. So we really need to think about our mental health and try to pause and reflect on all the situation we have.
Aisha, you're in the corporate world. How do you see that?
I kind of bit disagree. I mean, I'm very connected. I'm always working. I mean, I don't think that it's something that corporate is putting on. It's you as an individual. How do you find the work-life balance? I mean, a work-life balance for myself might be different than Dr. Reem, might be different than yourself. At the end of the day, each gender, whether it was a male or a female, defines work-life balance differently. So I don't think it's around a gender that you can connect or disconnect. It's actually as an individual. I mean, some people have the ability and are able to work for 20 hours a day, and they feel that's fine, not an issue. Some people think, no, 8 is more than enough, and they can't give more. So it comes down not more to the gender, but as an individual, how do you manage it?
Well, I guess the question that I was aiming for is, what are the setbacks in your careers? As female, what do you think in the corporate world or in the society is holding you back in reaching your potential if you are a woman? And why do you have to be resilient and basically not accepting no as an answer to achieve that?
Yeah, just to answer you on that, I think it will be more a society-driven, but not an individual-driven. If the society as a whole, as a culture changes, I mean, we come from the UAE. There's a culture barrier. There's always, our culture needs to be maintained. That might be something, but I don't find anything like from families or from corporates pushing us back into saying no, for example, to an answer. I think Reem has.
So if I can add basically to what you just said, Aisha, and I do agree with her on the 8 or 20 hour per day. At the end of the day, I think it's the woman's choice. I'm known in my organization, my colleagues are laughing, as a hard worker. I don't disconnect. Okay, I see myself as a humble servant of Etihad in the country, and I decide if I want to work 8 hours or 24/7. So I don't want my male colleague to tell me you need to switch off or to take a decision with me. And I think this is where the boundary is. I don't want my boss to tell me, oh, you should take some time off to take care of your children. I don't want to be with my children. I want to be in the office. So it's for me to decide, not for you to decide for me. And I think this is where we should put the boundary. If I want to be 24/7, it's my choice. It's my decision. If I don't want to go in maternity leave or shorten it or extend it, it's my choice, my decision. So I believe that the organizations, anyway, needs to be supportive of women's choice. And the barrier that I see with Mel is basically we need to help them and support them to understand that sometimes we have unconventional decisions and unconventional choices, or probably something that is not aligned with the caricature that they have of us as Middle Eastern women. Because I had basically this case in my own organization, and he was like, oh, I thought you have 3 months of maternity leave. No, I don't want to be at home. My son is with my mother. I want to be in the office because we have problems that we need to resolve. So I'm not going to let my team that I support, love and cherish as well, because I help them to grow. I'm not going to let them alone. I need to be here with them on the field and support them.
Well, thank you so much, women. All of you guys were inspired by you. They say, I was just overhearing this conversation, somebody else was saying that you teach a man, you teach a person. You teach a woman, you're teaching a whole family and community. With that being said, I want to invite the chairman of the board, Adnan Al-Nourani, for a special message.
Hello. I believe that women are creator. Anybody believe it? I believe in it. Yes. There is a message I want to give. It's for the women. Well, hear me now, using my voice, among a growing culture of the voices that will not be silenced. Let's make some noises. This is the women's. I believe that all the religions, they talk about the women's, that the heaven is down of the feet of the mothers. The religions are all one. The mission is one. The women's, we need to appreciate them a lot because they work, they struggle, they create a family, they educate us, and they lead. Backside of every strong man, powerful woman. Thank you so much.